Commander Zephyx stood before the massive viewing screen aboard the flagship Dominion's Edge, watching the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly below. The human homeworld looked peaceful from this distance, almost innocent. How wrong appearances could be. Status report on the human female, Zephyx commanded, his 4 arms crossed behind his back in the traditional hegemony military stance. Lieutenant Corvus consulted his holographic display, tentacles dancing across the controls with practiced precision. Target designation, Sarah Chun, remains in the research facility on the planet's northern continent. Intelligence confirms she is close to completing her theoretical framework for quantum displacement technology. Zephyx's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered a smile. The humans had no idea what they were playing with. Quantum displacement technology could revolutionize warfare, transportation, and resource extraction across the galaxy. In the wrong hands, specifically human hands, it could upset the delicate balance of power that the hegemony had maintained for over 3,000 years. And our asset? Zephyx inquired. Juggernaut Unit X. 7 has completed final preparations. The enhancement surgeries were successful. Molecular density increased by 300%, neural response time improved by 47%, and combat effectiveness ratings are off the charts. The unit shows no signs of the psychological breakdown that plagued earlier models. Zephyx nodded approvingly. The Juggernaut program represented the pinnacle of hegemony military engineering, taking already formidable warriors from the most aggressive species in their alliance, and enhancing them beyond natural limitations created the perfect assassination tool. X-7 was a Kragnoth, a species known for their incredible strength and relentless hunting instincts. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws, a normal Kragnoth was dangerous enough. An enhanced one was practically unstoppable. Sir, if I may, Corvus interjected carefully. Our intelligence suggests the human female has minimal combat training. Perhaps sending a Juggernaut is excessive. Zephyx's eyes narrowed dangerously. Lieutenant, you clearly haven't studied human military history as thoroughly as you should have. These creatures are deceptively dangerous. They've turned warfare into an art form, developed weapons of mass destruction, and have a disturbing tendency to exceed all tactical predictions. We've observed them achieve victory in situations where defeat should have been mathematically certain. The commander moved closer to the viewing screen, placing one clawed hand against the cold surface. Besides, Dr. Chun isn't just any human. Our deep intelligence reports indicate she served in their military before becoming a scientist. Special operations, if our sources are correct. And humans who survive that particular crucible are different. Corvus's tentacles curled nervously. He'd heard stories about human special forces from other campaigns. The tales seemed too incredible to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. Humans had a way of turning the impossible into the inevitable. Launch the Juggernaut, Zephyx ordered. Deploy him directly to the research facility. I want Dr. Chun eliminated before she can share her work with their military. The quantum displacement research dies with her. In a launch bay, 3 decks below, X-7 performed final equipment checks. The Juggernaut's enhanced muscles rippled beneath skin that had been chemically hardened to resist energy weapons. His bones had been replaced with synthetic alternatives that were both lighter and 10 times stronger than the originals. Microprocessors embedded in his nervous system would allow him to react to threats faster than conscious thought. The mission parameters were simple. Infiltrate the human research facility. Eliminate Dr. Sarah Chun. Destroy all research related to quantum displacement technology, and extract without engaging unnecessary targets. The hegemony preferred surgical strikes when possible. X7's lips pulled back in a snarl of anticipation. He'd been enhanced beyond the limits of his already formidable species. The human female, no matter how dangerous her kind might be, was just one small organic creature. This mission would be over quickly. As the deployment pod sealed around him, X-7 reviewed what intelligence they had on the target. Dr. Sarah Chun, 34 years old, born in Earth's Pacific Northwest region. Former military service in something called the Rangers, followed by advanced education in theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. Currently working on classified research for the human government. The pod launched from the ship's belly, beginning its silent descent toward Earth's surface. Stealth technology kept it invisible to human detection systems as it cut through the atmosphere. X-7 felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came before a hunt. Soon, he would add another successful mission to his record. What the intelligence reports hadn't mentioned, what the hegemony's vast surveillance network had somehow missed, was that Dr. Sarah Chun had never truly left the military behind. She still ran 15 kilometers every morning, still practiced hand-to-hand combat in her personal gym, and still slept with a loaded pistol in her nightstand drawer. More importantly, the reports had failed to capture the most dangerous thing about Dr. Chun. She was a human being backed into a corner, and cornered humans had a tendency to do impossible things. Dr. Sarah Chen's fingers flew across the holographic interface, equations dancing through three-dimensional space around her like luminous ghosts. The quantum displacement calculations were finally beginning to make sense after months of theoretical dead ends. She was so close to a breakthrough that she could practically taste it. The research facility hummed with quiet efficiency around her. Located in the mountains of Colorado, the classified installation was home to humanity's most advanced scientific projects. Sarah had been working here for 6 months, ever since her former commanding officer had personally recruited her for something he'd only described as potentially civilization-changing. She paused in her work, stretching muscles that had been hunched over computers for too many hours. Through the reinforced windows of her lab, she could see the sun setting behind the Rocky Mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was beautiful, peaceful even. A good place to change the world. Sarah's enhanced hearing, a souvenir from her military days when an explosion had damaged her natural hearing, leading to cybernetic replacements, picked up something unusual. The facility's normal background sounds had shifted slightly. Air circulation patterns were different. Footsteps in the corridors had an odd rhythm. She frowned, fingers instinctively moving toward the emergency alert button on her workstation. Years of special operations training had taught her to trust her instincts, even when logic suggested everything was normal. That training saved her life. The wall behind her exploded inward as X-7 burst through reinforced concrete like it was made of paper. Debris scattered across the lab as the Juggernaut assessed his target. The human female appeared smaller than expected, but intelligence had warned him not to underestimate their species. Sarah rolled away from the falling rubble, her body moving with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years learning how to survive in hostile environments. Her hand found the pistol sheath secured under her workstation, a habit her colleagues thought was paranoid, but one that had just proven its worth. X-7 moved with enhanced speed, closing the distance between them in 2 massive strides. His clawed hand swept through the space where Sarah's head had been a split second earlier, leaving deep gouges in the metal workstation. Sarah came up firing, her military-grade sidearm barking 3 times in rapid succession. The bullet struck X-7 center mass, but his enhanced armor turned them aside like raindrops. She cursed and rolled again as his second swipe narrowly missed, removing her spine. Definitely not a normal human. X-7 growled in the universal language the hegemony used for communication. He'd expected the target to freeze in terror or attempt to reason with him. Instead, she was moving like a trained combatant. Sarah's mind raced through tactical options. Her standard ammunition was useless against this thing's armor. She needed either heavier firepower or a different approach entirely. The creature was fast for its size, but she was smaller and more agile. She could use that. Grabbing a portable cutting laser from her equipment rack, Sarah slashed at X-7's extended arm. The beam carved through his enhanced skin, drawing a roar of pain and anger from the Juggernaut. Green blood splattered across the laboratory floor. "You dare!" X-7 bellowed, swinging his wounded arm in a vicious backhand that would have removed Sarah's head if she hadn't ducked. The blow instead demolished a bank of computers, sending sparks flying across the room. Sarah used the momentary distraction to activate the facility's emergency protocols from a backup terminal. Blast doors began sealing throughout the complex, and automated defenses came online. If she couldn't stop this thing alone, maybe the facility's security systems could help even the odds. X-7 realized his mistake too late. The mission called for a surgical strike, in and out without raising alarms. Instead, He'd let his wounded pride override tactical thinking. The facility was now in full lockdown, and backup would be arriving soon. He needed to finish this quickly. The Juggernaut activated his enhanced reflexes, his movements becoming a blur as he pressed his attack. Sarah found herself being driven back, the cutting laser her only weapon against his natural armor. She managed to score several more hits, but X7 was adapting to her tactics, learning to avoid the worst of the beam's damage. A massive fist caught her in the shoulder, sending her sprawling across the lab. Pain exploded through her left arm as something important broke. The cutting laser skittered away across the floor, out of reach. X7 advanced for the killing blow, confident that the human was finally beaten. This had taken longer than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. Enhanced Kragnoth physiology against human fragility. The mathematics were simple. He failed to notice that Dr. Chen's working relationship with impossible mathematics extended beyond her theoretical research. As X7 raised his claws for the final strike, Sarah's good hand found the activation switch for her quantum displacement prototype. She'd been planning to test it next week under carefully controlled conditions. Instead, she was about to find out if her theories worked under the ultimate stress test. The device hummed to life, reality bending around it in ways that made X7's enhanced vision blur and distort. He hesitated, some primitive instinct warning him that something was very wrong. Sarah smiled grimly despite the pain radiating from her broken shoulder. "Let's see how tough you really are." The quantum field reached critical resonance, and Sarah Chun disappeared. X7 stared at the empty space where the human female had been standing, his enhanced senses struggling to process what had just occurred. According to every instrument in his augmented nervous system, Dr. Chun had simply ceased to exist. No energy signature, no molecular residue, nothing. She had vanished as completely as if she had never been there. The Juggernaut's tactical programming kicked in, analyzing the new situation. The primary objective remained unchanged: eliminate the target and destroy her research. If the human had somehow used experimental technology to escape, he would adapt and pursue. He began systematically destroying the laboratory equipment, his enhanced strength turning sophisticated scientific instruments into scrap metal. The quantum displacement device sparked and died as his claws ripped through its delicate components. Mission parameters required the complete elimination of all research related to the technology. What X7 didn't understand was that Sarah hadn't escaped. The quantum displacement field had functioned exactly as her calculations predicted, but with one crucial difference from her original design. Instead of moving her to a different location, the unstable prototype had shifted her slightly out of phase with normal reality. Sarah stood in the same laboratory, watching the alien creature destroy her life's work. But she existed in a quantum state that made her invisible and intangible to the normal world. She could see and hear everything happening around her, but she couldn't interact with it. She was trapped between dimensions, a ghost in her own reality. Her broken shoulder throbbed with pain that felt strangely distant, as if the injury existed in a different layer of reality. The quantum field had affected more than just her position in space. It had fundamentally altered her relationship with the physical universe. Through the lab's damaged wall, Sarah could see hegemony security forces moving through the facility corridors. They were methodically eliminating human personnel they encountered, their weapons cutting through the installation's defenses with disturbing ease. This wasn't just an assassination mission. It was a full-scale attack designed to prevent humanity from developing quantum displacement technology. She watched helplessly as her colleagues and friends were cut down by alien soldiers. Dr. Martinez from the Theoretical Physics Department, Jennifer from Computer Systems, even old Sam from Maintenance, who had survived 3 tours in the Marine Corps only to die in what should have been a secure research facility. Rage built within Sarah's displaced consciousness, a cold fury that seemed to resonate with the quantum field surrounding her. The equations she'd spent months developing suddenly took on new meaning as she realized the potential applications of her discovery that she'd never considered. The quantum displacement field wasn't just about moving through space. It was about manipulating the fundamental forces that held reality together. And Sarah Chun had always been very good at math. X-7 completed his destruction of the laboratory and activated his communication implant to report mission status. Command, this is Juggernaut X-7. Primary target eliminated through unknown means. Research facility secured. Requesting extraction. The response crackled through his enhanced auditory systems. Acknowledged X-7. Clean up any remaining witnesses and proceed to extraction point alpha. Well done. The Juggernaut began moving through the facility, following the path of destruction left by the hegemony security teams. Bodies of human personnel lay scattered throughout the corridors, their research and dreams ended by alien weapons. X-7 felt no particular emotion about their deaths. They were simply obstacles that had been removed. He was halfway to the extraction point when Sarah reappeared. The quantum field collapsed around her as she forced herself back into normal reality through pure mathematical determination. She materialized directly behind X-7, her good hand gripping an improvised weapon she'd constructed from equipment in one of the facility's other laboratories. The weapon was a modified particle accelerator, normally used for atomic research, but reconfigured using principles from her quantum displacement work. Instead of moving matter through space, it moved the strong nuclear force that held atoms together. In simple terms, Sarah had built a device that could make the fundamental forces of physics forget how to work properly. X-7 spun toward her with enhanced reflexes, but Sarah had already pulled the trigger. The beam struck the Juggernaut's left leg, and reality hiccuped. For a brief moment, the strong nuclear force in that area simply stopped functioning. X-7's enhanced bones, muscles, and synthetic reinforcements lost their structural integrity on a molecular level. His leg disintegrated. X-7 roared in pain and shock as he crashed to the floor, green blood pooling around him. His enhanced physiology kept him conscious despite massive trauma, but he could feel his body's systems beginning to fail. The weapon had done something impossible, something that violated every law of physics he'd been programmed to understand. Sarah stood over him, her weapon trained on his remaining leg. Her face was a mask of cold determination, but tears streamed down her cheeks for her dead colleagues. My friends didn't deserve to die, she said quietly. They were scientists, not soldiers. They were trying to make the universe a better place. X-7 tried to crawl toward her, his massive hands leaving bloody trails on the floor. You cannot defeat the hegemony. We are inevitable. Sarah tilted her head, considering his words. Maybe, but you know what humans are really good at? Learning from our mistakes. And right now, I'm learning a lot about how your species thinks. She pulled the trigger again. X-7's remaining leg vanished at the molecular level, leaving him completely immobilized. His enhanced healing factor was trying desperately to compensate for the damage, but there was nothing left to heal. The weapon had erased parts of him from existence. The interesting thing about quantum displacement, Sarah explained, her scientist's mind automatically shifting into lecture mode, is that it doesn't just move things through space. It can move them through time, through parallel dimensions, through the quantum foam that underlies all reality. X-7's vision was beginning to blur as his enhanced systems struggled to maintain basic functions. What are you? Sarah knelt beside him, careful to stay out of reach of his still dangerous claws. I'm Dr. Sarah Chun. I'm a former Army Ranger. I'm a theoretical physicist. And I'm the last human being you're ever going to see. She activated a modified version of her quantum displacement device, one she'd cobbled together from spare parts while existing between dimensions. This version was designed for a very specific purpose. I'm going to send you home, she said. Back to your ship, back to your commanders. But I'm going to send your legs somewhere else entirely. Somewhere your people will never find them. The quantum field enveloped X-7's dying form, reality bending around him as Sarah's mathematics took hold of the universe itself. The last thing he saw before the displacement field activated was Dr. Chen's face, calm and determined and absolutely terrifying in its human resolve. Then X-7 was gone, transported back to his ship to deliver a message that Sarah Chun wanted the hegemony to receive. The quantum displacement field deposited X-7's broken body in the center of the Dominion's Edge Bridge with a flash of impossible light. The Juggernaut materialized on the command deck's polished floor, leaving a trail of green blood and the unmistakable stench of molecular destruction. Commander Zephyx turned from the tactical display he'd been studying, expecting a routine mission report. Instead, he found his supposedly invincible assassin bleeding out on his pristine bridge, both legs missing from the knees down. "Medical team, to the bridge." "Now," Zephyx shouted, his four arms gesticulating wildly as he rushed to X7's side. Around the bridge, his crew stood frozen in shock. Juggernauts were supposed to be unstoppable. They were the hegemony's ultimate weapon, enhanced beyond the limits of natural biology. X7's eyes focused weakly on his commander. "Mission compromised," he rasped, his enhanced vocal cords struggling to function. "Target not eliminated." Lieutenant Corvus arrived with the medical team, his tentacles pale with shock as he took in the scene. The Juggernaut was alive, barely, but the precision of his injuries suggested something far beyond normal human capabilities. The legs hadn't been severed or blown off. They had simply ceased to exist at the molecular level. "What happened down there?" Zephyx demanded as the medics worked to stabilize X7's failing systems. "How did human scientists do this to you?" X7's breathing was becoming more labored as his enhanced physiology finally began to shut down. She displaced quantum field. He struggled to form coherent thoughts through the pain and system failures. "Not normal human. Weapon impossible." The medical team's leader, a hegemony doctor with 6 arms and centuries of experience, looked up from his instruments with confusion written across his alien features. "Commander, I don't understand how this creature is still alive. The damage is unprecedented." His legs weren't removed, they were erased. At the atomic level, Zephyx felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The hegemony had conquered hundreds of worlds, faced thousands of species, and cataloged every known form of warfare in the galaxy. They had weapons that could crack planets and destroy stars. But they had nothing that could selectively erase matter from existence. "Dr. Chun," X7 whispered, his voice barely audible. "She's coming." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the quantum displacement field activated again. Sarah materialized in the center of the bridge, exactly where X7 had appeared moments earlier. But this wasn't the same human scientist who had been working peacefully in her laboratory hours ago. The quantum displacement experiments had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. Her broken shoulder had somehow healed during her passage between dimensions. Her eyes glowed with residual quantum energy. Most disturbing of all, she held a weapon that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and held together by mathematics itself. The bridge crew reached for their weapons, but Sarah had already calculated their response patterns. The quantum field around her shifted, and suddenly, every weapon on the bridge simply stopped working. Not jammed, not broken. They simply ceased to function as their molecular bonds temporarily forgot how to exist. "Nobody move," Sarah said calmly, her voice carrying clearly across the silent bridge. "I'm not here to fight your entire crew. I'm here to talk to your commander." Zephyx stepped forward slowly, his 4 arms spread in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture. "I am Commander Zephyx of the Hegemony Defense Force. You are trespassing on a military vessel in violation of all known treaties." Sarah smiled grimly. "Commander, your people just murdered an entire research facility full of innocent scientists. I don't think treaties are particularly relevant at this point." She gestured toward X7, who was barely conscious on the bridge floor. "Your Juggernaut here was very informative before I sent him home. Enhanced biology, synthetic bone replacement, neural acceleration, impressive work. But you made one critical mistake." Zephyx's mandibles clicked nervously. "What mistake?" "You assumed that being physically superior made you automatically dangerous to humans." Sarah's weapon hummed with quantum energy as she spoke. "That's like assuming that being larger makes you better at chess. You enhanced his body, but you forgot to enhance his tactical thinking." Lieutenant Corvus stepped forward, his tentacles curled in confusion. "Impossible. Juggernaut tactical programming is derived from thousands of successful missions across hundreds of worlds." Sarah turned her attention to the lieutenant, and Corvus immediately regretted speaking. Her eyes held the kind of calm intensity that predators displayed just before they struck. "Your tactical programming assumed I would behave like every other species you've encountered. Flight or fight responses, emotional decision-making, individual self-preservation over group objectives, standard biological imperatives. Sarah's smile grew colder. But humans aren't standard, Lieutenant. We're persistence predators who evolved to hunt prey larger and stronger than ourselves. We don't run from superior force. We figure out how to make superior force irrelevant. She activated a recording device built into her improvised weapon, and X7's voice filled the bridge with his mission briefing from hours earlier. The Juggernaut's confident assessment of human capabilities, his dismissive attitude toward their species, his certainty that enhanced biology would ensure victory. Your people studied human history, Sarah continued, but you focused on the wrong details. You saw our wars and our weapons and assumed we were just another aggressive species. What you missed was how we think. Zephix was beginning to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation. What do you want? I want your people to leave Earth alone, Sarah replied simply. I want you to classify our world as off-limits for hegemony expansion, and I want assurance that my research will be left to proceed without interference. That's impossible, Zephix protested. The Hegemony Council would never agree to such terms based on the actions of a single human. Sarah nodded, as if she had expected that response. You're right. One human isn't enough to change galactic policy. Her weapon's quantum field began to fluctuate in complex patterns. But I'm not going to be just one human much longer. Before Zephix could ask what she meant, Sarah activated the quantum displacement field again. But this time, instead of transporting herself elsewhere, she used it to establish a communication link with Earth. Dr. Patterson, this is Sarah Chun, she said into the quantum communicator. Initiate Protocol 7. Full deployment of the quantum displacement research to every human military installation, every university physics department, and every amateur scientist with the skills to build the equipment. Zephix felt his blood chill as he realized what she was proposing. You're talking about weaponizing your entire species. I'm talking about giving humanity the tools we need to defend ourselves, Sarah corrected. Within 6 months, every human who wants quantum displacement technology will have access to the basic principles. Within a year, we'll have defensive systems based on these principles protecting every human world. She gestured toward X7 again. Your Juggernaut program represents decades of development and probably cost millions of credits per unit. I built a weapon that stopped him in about 4 hours using laboratory equipment and spare parts. Now imagine what humanity can accomplish when we put our entire industrial base to work on the problem. The quantum field around Sarah began to destabilize as she prepared to return to Earth. Commander Zephix, you have a choice to make. You can recognize humanity as an independent species that should be left alone, or you can discover exactly how creative we can be when we're motivated to defend ourselves. Zephix watched helplessly as the human scientist prepared to vanish again. How do I contact you to discuss terms? Sarah's smile was answer enough. Commander, I just demonstrated that I can appear anywhere I want, anytime I want, with weapons your people can't stop or even understand. Trust me, when humanity is ready to negotiate, we'll find you. The quantum displacement field collapsed, taking Sarah Chin back to her devastated homeworld. But her message remained hanging in the air like a promise and a threat combined. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, Commander Zephix stared at the empty space where the human had been and tried to calculate how badly the hegemony had underestimated Earth's most dangerous species. 6 months later, Commander Zephix stood once again before the Hegemony High Council. But this time his confidence had been replaced by barely contained dread. The ornate chamber on the capital world of Hegemon Prime buzzed with the conversations of dozens of species, all represented in the galaxy's most powerful governing body. High Counselor Vorthak, a massive crystalline being whose species had founded the hegemony 3 millennia ago, focused his attention on the military commander with obvious displeasure. Commander Zephix, your initial assessment of the human threat level appears to have been insufficient. The understatement was so profound that Zephix almost laughed. Instead, he activated the holographic display that would show the council exactly how wrong they had all been. Honored counselors, the human species has undergone what can only be described as a technological revolution. In the 6 months since our failed mission to Earth, They have deployed quantum displacement technology across their entire civilization. Images flickered through the display, showing human installations throughout their solar system. Earth's moon now bristled with defensive platforms that could selectively erase incoming projectiles from existence. Mars had been transformed into a massive research complex where human scientists worked around the clock to develop new applications for their quantum technology. Their defensive capabilities now exceed our ability to project force into their system, Zephyx continued, his four arms gesturing toward tactical readouts that painted a sobering picture. Any fleet we send would face weapons that can ignore conventional shields and armor entirely. Counselor Urek, whose aquatic species had contributed much of the hegemony's advanced biotechnology, raised a tentacled appendage. Surely you're exaggerating, Commander. One primitive world cannot have advanced so quickly. Zephyx activated another set of recordings. 3 weeks ago, we detected quantum displacement signatures throughout the Sol system. The humans were apparently conducting testing of their new capabilities. They transported their moon approximately 50 kilometers out of its normal orbit and back again. As a demonstration, the council chamber fell silent. Moving a planetary body was something the hegemony could accomplish, but it required massive orbital platforms and months of preparation. The humans had apparently done it casually, just to prove they could. The implications go far beyond defensive capabilities, Zephyx added grimly. Our intelligence suggests they're developing applications we never considered. Quantum communication systems that ignore the speed of light. Manufacturing techniques that can build materials at the atomic level. Agricultural systems that can modify the fundamental properties of matter to improve crop yields. High Counselor Vorthax, crystalline form pulsed with agitation. Commander, are you suggesting that this primitive species has become a threat to hegemony dominance in a matter of months? Before Zephyx could answer, the chamber's alert systems activated. Emergency signals flashed throughout the council complex as defensive satellites detected an incoming quantum displacement signature. Sarah Chan materialized in the center of the council chamber. She was no longer the desperate scientist who had fought for her life in a burning laboratory. Months of working with quantum technology had changed her in subtle but fundamental ways. Her movements were perfectly controlled, as if she existed in harmony with the underlying mathematics of reality itself. Her eyes held the confidence of someone who understood forces that others could barely comprehend. Honored counselors, she said formally, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite its enormous size. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun, and I represent the United Earth government. I've come to discuss the future relationship between humanity and the hegemony. Security forces throughout the chamber reached for their weapons, but Sarah simply smiled. The quantum field around her shifted, and every weapon in the building temporarily forgot how to exist. Not destroyed, not disabled, simply absent from reality until she chose to allow them back. Please, remain seated, she said calmly. I'm not here as an enemy. I'm here as a representative of a species that would prefer to coexist peacefully with the galaxy. High Counselor Vorthax's voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems. Human, you have violated the sovereignty of the hegemony capital world. This is an act of war. Sarah shook her head. No, Counselor. An act of war is what your people did when they sent an assassin to murder me in my own laboratory. What I'm doing now is diplomacy. She activated a holographic display of her own, showing detailed schematics of quantum displacement technology. But these weren't the crude prototypes she'd built during the attack on Earth. These were refined, elegant systems that represented months of collaborative human innovation. The device I used to defend myself 6 months ago was a desperate improvisation. Since then, every human scientist, engineer, and mathematician has been working to develop new applications for quantum displacement theory. What you're seeing here represents the collective effort of our entire species. The schematics showed weapons that could erase entire fleets from existence, defensive systems that made conventional warfare obsolete, and transportation networks that could move entire populations across galactic distances in minutes. Counselor Urek's tentacles writhed nervously. Impossible. No single species could advance so rapidly. You're thinking like hegemony citizens, Sarah replied. You're used to a civilization where technological progress is controlled by committee, where new discoveries must be approved by dozens of bureaucratic layers before implementation. Humans don't work that way. She gestured, and the display showed images of human research facilities across the solar system. When humanity decides to solve a problem, we don't form committees. We don't wait for approvals. We turn our entire civilization into a massive parallel processing system. Every human who can contribute does contribute. Every resource that can be repurposed gets repurposed. Every conventional limitation gets questioned and, if necessary, ignored. Commander Zephix found himself nodding despite his apprehension. The reports from his intelligence operatives had described human society's response to the attack as unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of panic or surrender, they had displayed a collective determination that bordered on the supernatural. "What does your species want?" High Counselor Vorthak asked, his crystal form pulsing with colors that indicated deep concern. "We want what any intelligent species wants," Sarah replied. "The freedom to develop according to our own nature, the security to protect our own people, and the opportunity to contribute positively to galactic civilization." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "The hegemony has maintained order in this galaxy for 3,000 years. That's an impressive achievement. But your methods rely on maintaining technological and military superiority over all potential rivals. Humanity represents a new variable in that equation. Are you threatening us?" Counselor Urek demanded. Sarah's expression remained calm. "I'm explaining reality. Humanity now possesses technology that makes us functionally immune to hegemony military pressure. We can defend ourselves against any force you can deploy. More importantly, we can project our own power anywhere in the galaxy at will." The implications hung heavy in the chamber air. A species that could appear anywhere, anytime, with weapons the hegemony couldn't stop, represented a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. However, Sarah continued, humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We're explorers, scientists, engineers. We want to learn, to grow, to contribute. We're offering the hegemony a partnership between equals rather than the subjugation you originally attempted. High Counselor Vorthak was silent for several long minutes, his crystalline form cycling through complex patterns of color and light as he consulted with other council members through quantum communication links. Finally, he spoke. "Dr. Chun, what you're proposing would require fundamental changes to hegemony structure and policy. We would need to recognize humanity as a sovereign species with territorial rights and technological independence." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "You would. And, in return, humanity would be willing to share certain applications of quantum displacement technology with hegemony member species. Peaceful applications that could benefit everyone." She activated one final display, showing medical applications that could cure previously incurable diseases, manufacturing techniques that could eliminate resource scarcity, and transportation systems that could connect the galaxy in ways previously impossible. "The choice is yours," Sarah said simply. "Humanity is going to continue developing quantum technology regardless of hegemony approval. The question is whether that development happens in cooperation with existing galactic civilization or in opposition to it." The quantum field around her began to fluctuate as she prepared to return to Earth. "I'll give you 1 month to decide. At the end of that time, humanity will begin expanding beyond the Sol system. How we're received by our neighbors will determine whether that expansion represents new opportunities for everyone or new challenges for the hegemony." Sarah Chun vanished, leaving behind a council chamber full of the galaxy's most powerful beings who suddenly found themselves having to recalculate everything they thought they knew about power, technology, and the future of galactic civilization. High Counselor Vorthak stared at the empty space where the human had been and wondered if the hegemony had just witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. Outside the council chamber, in the depths of space around Earth, quantum displacement fields flickered with new possibilities as humanity prepared to take its place among the stars.